George Catlin pops up again with our friend Mr. Humboldt, because what Catlin will do is after 1830, when Andrew Jackson puts out the Indian Removal Act, Catlin is livid. He feels that this will create the wholesale destruction of American Indian culture. In 1832, he will actually suggest that the entire western third of the country be set aside as one giant national park where the Indians and the bison that sustain them can just be left to their own devices. It's just like, we will just not deal with that, we'll just set it aside. That doesn't get traction at the moment, and in fact, Catlin will get thrown out of the White House for protesting the Indian Removal Act. So he's also shooting himself in the foot when it comes time to wanting to have a voice in American politics. What he does instead is he paints over 500 portraits of American Indians. He pulls together artifacts, and he creates an Indian gallery. And so the portraits that you see here are part of that Indian gallery, but they play an important role in this exhibition because these are Iowa Indians who sailed to Europe, brought there by one of P.T. Barnum's lieutenants, specifically to dance for Catlin as part of his Indian gallery performances. So these portraits are made in London in 1844 and then transported to Paris. In Paris, Catlin will present his Indian gallery, and these Indians will dance for the King of France, Louis Philippe, and his queen, Charlotte. And this is Catlin's Indian gallery as it's presented in the Tuileries in Paris, painted by the French court painter Carl Girardet. There's Catlin over here on the far right, speaking to the Queen. There is the monarch himself in his white waistcoat, and each of the men and women who show up here are in these portraits. We can identify each one of them. Well, at these performances, which then take place in the Louvre after they've finished up dancing for the king, they move the whole entourage to a salon in the Louvre, and that's where it's set up for public performances. George Sand, Victor Hugo, the artist Eugene Delacroix, and Alexander von Humboldt witness those performances. At the end of one of the performances, the director of the Louvre, Catlin, the Iowa Indians, and Humboldt tour the museum together. There is presumably a diary kept by one of these gentlemen, this one here, Walking Rain, known as Jim. We don't know where that diary is right now. I would really love to have it pop up, because right now all we have are Catlin's notes on what that encounter was like. It would be really nice to have their perspective on what was going on there. But the interesting thing is, these are the only indigenous people from the United States that Humboldt will ever meet and converse with. And so he and Catlin become friends. And despite the fact that Catlin can be as tone deaf as the next person about, sort of taking advantage of this situation in order to try to make money off of the Indian gallery, they stay in touch. And when Catlin comes to Berlin the next decade in the 1850s, Humboldt will set him up with a commission to paint copies of some of his paintings for the King of Prussia. And so these two paintings belong to us, but there are copies of these in the Royal Collection in Berlin as part of that commission. When Catlin writes up his European exploits, these books are here, he uses as his frontispiece Humboldt shaking hands with an Iowa Indian. And just in case you missed the subtlety of that, he embosses it on the cover, quite literally using Humboldt as his Good Housekeeping seal of approval.